the Home Office is facing accusations of silencing a senior advisor after he publicly warned about the growing threat of Islamism. Well, that former senior advisor, Fiyaz Mugal, joins me now. Fiyaz, hello, welcome to the show. So there was an article in the Daily Telegraph. This is very disturbing. This is after you yourself wrote a piece in the Telegraph pointing out that you attended a conference and for the first 90 minutes, no one mentioned Islamist terrorism as a threat. And this was a conference specifically about the greatest threats in our country, right?
Indeed. This was called the extremism or counter-terrorism sprint, the Prevent Sprint, which was looking at counter-terrorism and the strategy going forward. And it was developed with a view to possibly moving into a new government as Labour came into place. And this was a group of us, a day and a half, who were being presented with a strategy. What was really concerning is I, as a British Muslim, was listening to it, and I could hardly hear Islamist extremism mentioned. I heard mixed ideology, I heard gender-based ideological hate. But the reality is, it was the issue around Islamist extremism was hardly just at points mentioned. Yet we know, all of us know, it is the major overriding threat in terms of counter-terrorism issues today in our country. Yeah,
that impacts also, by the way, victims who are Muslim as well, as we have seen around the world.
Totally, it impacts all of us. I mean, since 7/7, all of us on the underground, on the buses, all of us are potentially targets for these extremists.
So then afterwards, so you pointed this out in an article, and then someone from the Home Office contacted you afterwards.
Yes, it was interesting because this person hadn't spoken to me for over about 2 years, and suddenly texted me to say he'd like to have a word about addressing some form of balance. Now, what does he mean about balance? Islamist extremism is what it is. It is a direct threat. And so this suggestion and insinuation around balance or having a chat with me, and then suggestions around, well, there's a possibility, I was then approved as what is called a channel provider, and that is to provide direct counter-extremism support and assistance to people who may be radicalized. And I found that communication via text insinuating in a way that I should keep quiet or I should change tone. And the reality is I basically told them to get stuffed. And I'm not willing to work in an environment where I can't speak about Islamist extremism because it is a cancer that has affected my community. And I've been working on this since 7/7, and so many lives have been lost in it, and I'm going to keep speaking about it.
Absolutely. And I think one of the other things that's terrifying is how that they want to do investigations no longer based on ideology.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you now, a lot of this has been driven by lobbyists. Lobbyists from third sector organizations who want grant money. And so what they do is they produce a report, and they produce a report which basically takes away from Islamist extremism. And so a lot of this is lobbying work going on behind the scenes, and we need to call it out.
Crazy. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Fiyaz Mugal.
Your passwords are your passwords, only for your eyes. But how safe is your phone or laptop or tablet? Well, watch this. I press one button and my phone is now shielded from hackers and prying eyes. ExpressVPN is your protector. Yes, you can protect all your passwords fast across multiple devices with ExpressVPN. Premium, fast and highly secure. Get big peace of mind for a low cost. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free, all backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your online life today.
Let's get the thoughts of political commentator Matthew Stadlen and the Director of Civic Engagement and Senior Correspondent at Logical Politics, Khadija Brown. Good evening to you both. Thank you for sticking up with me on the Late Show Live so late. I very much appreciate it. This is a story. Well, Khadija, let's start with you. I take it you've read this story. It's about a guy who was working, he was a contractor working at the Home Office who raised concerns. He was on a sort of anti-extremism course, and his point was that 90 minutes into the course, an hour and a half on, nobody, not one person, not the course instructor, had mentioned radical Islam or Islamists. And he kind of said, well, hang on a minute, guys, that is the biggest extremist threat in the UK at the moment, and he basically paid the price for it. Khadija, what's your take on this?
I definitely do believe that he was silenced, and because the timing and reference to future work was a very clear case of chilling effect, which is known by UK law and the ECHR, that although he was not told not to speak, but they referenced the fact that his future work will be affected, is a very clear case of chilling effect. Therefore, he is silenced. And this is not an isolated case. This thing has happened in the past many times. And one very great case to bring to your attention is David Nutt, who was a senior drug advisor for the government. And he was silenced when he gave his expert advice by criticizing what the government is doing. The thing is, when we have experts giving advice to the government, they're not meant to be aligning with the government. They're meant to be giving their expert opinions. But the thing is, we have seen lately that if you speak up against something that they don't like and doesn't align with them, then you're silenced. And yes, it wasn't done in an illegal way, but you are being pressured in an informal way so that there's no record kept about it.
Okay.
So in my opinion, it's definitely, he is definitely being silenced.
Yeah, I remember David Nutt. He was sacked for saying that, I think the stats were true, that horse riding was more dangerous than taking ecstasy. Matthew, does the UK have an Islamism problem?
Well, obviously, yes. First of all. Secondly, I don't know.
Why would the government try and silence that?
I don't know Fiyaz Mughal myself, and I've read the article clearly. Had this been on Monday, I would have called the Home Office and asked them for a more detailed response to the one that they've given at the end of the article. But I don't think he's been silenced in the sense he's talking about this, right? He's talking about this in public. What really is the suggestion here? That the British state or that the Labour government is not taking Islamism or Islamic extremism seriously? Of course it is. I mean, I think look. There is always the risk of an Islamic extremist attack to which we're all vulnerable. But I am, at least in part, reassured as someone who lives in London and uses public transport a lot of the time and has a family here, that our security services will be working round the clock dealing with this threat. And my understanding, by the way, is that Islamic extremism is by some distance the biggest threat that our country faces in terms of terrorism and extremism. So of course the British state and of course the Labour government is taking it extremely seriously.
Okay, well, you say that, but Khadija, the small boats keep coming. These strange men from, as I described them, faraway lands keep coming. I don't know who they are, where they come from. And over the decades, atrocities. London Bridge twice, Westminster Bridge, the Manchester Arena bombing. It goes on and on. Even in Europe, the Bastille Day celebrations, the Bataclan, and the Madrid train bombings, 7/7 in London. All committed, not by Mormons, not by Christians, not by Jews, but by radical Islam. That keeps happening. I would put my money on it happening again some point in the future in the UK, unfortunately. So if that keeps happening, it seems to me, common sense says, well, the government isn't doing enough to stop it.
I definitely agree with you. They are definitely not doing enough. And Fiyaz Mugal has been an advisor for the Home Office before the 7/7. So he is very aware of everything that is happening. And he's not exactly someone who is against Islam. He's a Muslim himself, and he understands the difference. He runs his own group, which is stopping hate against Muslims. But he, as a Muslim, identifies the difference between Islamism and normal Islam, and he is aware that Islamism is taken over. And we have seen in recent weeks that Emirates is refusing to send their students to the UK because they don't want radical Islam to be affecting their students. We know this is a very serious case, and we know it comes hand in hand with all the tons and tons of people that are arriving on boats on our shores on a daily basis. Of course there's an issue, and I definitely agree with him.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll just push for time. Apologies. Matthew, last word to you, Matthew.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I would just say, I mean, I reject your sort of lazy, bigoted description of men from strange
talking
men
to me or
from
Khadija?
No, to you, Ben, from faraway lands. What I would say is that
they're not blondes from Sweden who we know their backgrounds, are they? They are. We don't know who they are, where they're from
Sweden,
what their backgrounds are,
from Sweden,
or what their
they may well be. Hang on, you get blondes from Sweden. They may well be far-right extremists. We don't know. We have 3.9 million Muslims living in Britain, and you know as well as I do that the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of those 3.9 million Muslims are law-abiding citizens, just like you and I, just like all three of us. Of course there is a problem with Islamic extremism. We live in this country, we know it, we've experienced it. I was live on air hosting a 4-hour national radio show with no adverts in the immediate aftermath that night of the London Bridge terrorist attack, an appalling atrocity. We all stand to gain from eradicating...
Yeah, I was there as well. I saw a girl with her throat cut. I was next to her as she bled out of the hands of Islamists.
Yeah, it's horrific, obviously. Everyone watching this show, I would suggest you, agrees. So let's not conflate innocent people with extremists. The extremists are the problem. They have to be dealt with under the law, and they have to be prevented as well, and that's what our security services are working round the clock to do.
All right. Okay, Matthew, thank you very much. As always, appreciate you staying up so late. And Khadija, great to speak with you as well. Hopefully you'll come back on the show at some point in the future. Thank you both. GB News would like to point out the Home Office has consistently stated that Islamist extremism remains the primary terrorist threat in the UK. The government has also said that Prevent and the Home Office's Channel programme work with a wide range of independent experts and partners.